Welcome. I can see that we have some people starting to join us in the webinar. And as we're approaching 1 p.m, we'll just be with you in a few moments so we can make sure that the live stream is up and running okay. I can see we've got some people logging in. It's great to see you're joining us. We're just going to be a couple more moments. The time is now 1 o'clock, so I'd like to start and say good afternoon. I'm Crystal M. Casatari. I'm a research fellow at the Marks Institute BabyLab at Western Sydney University, and I'm a mum of 2 young and boisterous boys, and I'm going to be your host for today. It's really great to have you joining us for our very first webinar as we launch our exciting new assessment tool to track communication in our kids. We're also launching our new website with resources that you can use to check how your child's communication is developing and find support if you need it. Today's webinar was designed for parents, and we're thrilled to have so many of you here joining us. We also have a few health and education professionals sitting in, so it's really great to have you all online with us too. I'd like to start by acknowledging and paying respects to the custodians of the lands on which we meet today. We pay our respects to elders past and present, and have a special welcome to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who are online with us today. In partnership with the speech pathologists at Liverpool Hospital in New South Wales, researchers at Western Sydney University have recently created the first short and user-friendly assessment tool for communication in Aussie babies and toddlers. Today, we're launching this tool and thanking all of you who have contributed to this research so far. Before we begin, I thought I'd let you all know what we'll be talking about in this webinar. We're going to start by introducing the tool, which is called the OZI SF. We'll then answer the question of why you would want to use it and how it actually works. Then we'll share what we've been learning so far from our research, and we'll finish off by pointing to our website and discussing where you can go for more support or information if you would like it. As we're chatting, if you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to go to the Q&A section and type in your questions so that we can answer them for you. If you haven't done this before, or if you're not using full screen mode, if you look towards the bottom of your screen, you'll see an icon with 3 dots. If you click on that, you'll get more options and you'll be able to see the Q&A button. We'll also be posting up the link to the OZI SF in the chat section of the webinar at the end so that you can click on this and check it out for yourself. This webinar will also be available on the website after we finish, so you can review it at a later date and also let your friends know so they can watch it too. I'm going to start now and introduce you to Professor Caroline Jones. She's been leading the team in this project. Hi Caroline, welcome to the webinar. I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit more about this assessment tool and why you've created it.
Sure, thanks Krista. Yes, a couple of years ago, we were hearing from speech pathologists and early educators that there were kids arriving at school with speech and language problems, and they wanted a quick and accurate tool to find and support those kids much earlier. So we decided to make a short, user-friendly checklist for parents of Aussie kids aged 1 to 2.5. We started with a checklist developed by colleagues in the WSU BabyLab 10 years ago. That's called the OZI, and we made a short version of it called the OZI short form, or the OZI SF for short.
So the checklist is really for parents to use, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Krista. When kids are really little, it's actually the parents who are the experts on how their kids are developing. So we were keen for our checklist to be a way to respect and tap that expertise and share it with a professional.
As a mum of busy little boys, and quite boisterous boys at times, why would I want to use this checklist?
Good question, Krista. A lot of kids develop just fine in their communication, but we know that about 10 to 25% of kids do have trouble at some point. As a parent and as a professional, it can actually be really hard on your own to decide if a very little kid is going well for their age. So that's where our checklist can help measure their progress. If your child is doing well, great, you can celebrate and track their progress and keep up the good work. If not, you've got information and a report you can use to go ask your child and family health nurse, your doctor, or a speech pathologist to get a fuller assessment and to get some support for your child.
That sounds good. So how do I use the checklist?
Yeah, it takes about 10 minutes and you can do it on a smartphone or a tablet or a computer. On the slide, you can see on the left what the interface looks like. When you go to the link, there's a list of words, gestures, and games and routines. And you just tap to select which ones your child is saying or trying to say, and which ones they understand. Your child gets full credit for knowing each item in any language if they're growing up bilingual or multilingual. And at the end of doing the checklist, you get a nice report sent to your email, which includes your child's scores.
So once I get these scores, how do I know what they mean?
Yeah, once you've got your report, we encourage you to look at our new website. On the website, we've got an interactive calculator where you can find out what your child's scores mean and whether we would recommend that you talk to your child and family health nurse, doctor, or speech pathologist. Our website also has great links put together by our speech pathology colleagues for useful resources you can access to help your child learn to communicate. On the website, we've also got information about a similar checklist called the EARLI, E-R-L-I, which we've developed with and for Indigenous families.
Thanks, Caroline. It sounds like an informative tool. In my experience, kids generally learn to speak in their own time. I've got Kate Jones here, who is a speech pathologist from Liverpool Hospital in New South Wales Health, and she is working on this project as part of her PhD studies at Western Sydney University. Hi, Kate. Can you tell us why it's useful to measure a baby or a toddler's communication in these first years of life?
Hi, Krista. Understanding how our children learn to communicate and being able to measure the changes is really important. The way children use gesture and develop their ability to understand and use words helps you as parents, as well as other early childhood professionals, to support and predict their communication skills as they grow. We know that parents and carers understand and provide great insight into their children's communication skills, and that means that you are the best person to share this information with others. Each child will learn and grow in different ways, and there's a general range of skill development that we know makes sure a child is able to meet their learning potential. Measuring a child's early vocabulary is a part of that. There's lots of research that shows that early vocabulary development predicts a child's communication skills, as well as how well they can learn to read, write, and spell. We also know that early vocabulary growth is linked with social skills, verbal memory, and self-regulation. Thinking about early vocabulary and gestures starts a conversation about a child's communication skills. Sharing that information makes sure that their skills are supported to develop well. If they have some difficulties, talking about them early gives us the best chance of helping. Using tools like the OZI SF can be a great way for parents, researchers, educators alike to keep this conversation going.
As a mother, I know that supporting my children's development is really important to me. So it's great to think that a simple tool like this can help me see whether they're on the right track. If you've just joined us, you can add questions at any time using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. We know that about 1 in 10 kids do have trouble with communication at some stage. And Kate, our speech pathologist, will be on hand to answer some of these questions later on. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Wei-Tsong Lee. He's been working really hard behind the scenes on the data processing and analysis for this project. He's going to step us through some of the ins and outs of the checklist. When you first go to the checklist, you'll see that it looks like this on your screens. And you'll see that in red, it asks for things like your email address and other personal details, like your child's name and their date of birth. Thanks for joining us, Wei-Tsong. I was wondering if you could tell us why you need to know things like my email and my child's date of birth.
Hi, Krista. Yes, so we ask for your email address so that we can send you the report after you complete the survey. Then the email address will be removed automatically before we ever see the data. Date of birth helps us track how children's language development changes from month to month because their language skills develop very quickly at younger ages. We also ask you to fill out your child's name so that we can identify multiple entries of the same child because some parents are very keen on using OZI SF every few months, and this is great. This helps the computer create a new entry for each child.
I know we're becoming more aware of privacy issues when we're doing different activities online. Can you tell me how our privacy is maintained when we use the OZI SF?
Yes, we have put in place strong safeguards for your privacy, and we take it very seriously. As researchers, we are required to meet high standards of ethics and to comply with privacy legislation. The personal information that you type into our checklist is converted to codes and deleted. We don't store your child's name or your email address. You and your child are not identifiable in the data that we analyze. And when we write publications, we describe group patterns, not individuals. So it is actually very safe for you to use our checklist.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Wei-Tsong. I'm now going to introduce you to Holly Hammond, as she has been assisting with the data collection as part of a student internship at Western Sydney University. Hi, Holly. I know you've recently completed the internship. I'm hoping that you can tell us a bit more about it.
Hi, Krista. So we primarily got in contact with parents through early learning centres, particularly the Western Sydney University early learning centres on our campuses, and also through our BabyLab registry. And we're really happy that so far the parents of 230 children have participated, and we've got about half boys and girls with an even spread of kids from 1 to 2.5 years of age.
So what are the findings so far?
Well, we looked at two things when it comes to baby and toddler vocabularies, and that's how many words they can understand and how many words they can say. So children will generally understand words before they begin to say them, which I think many parents know pretty intuitively. And if we have a look at the graph on the screen, we can see this is also reflected in our data. So the top line in blue is showing us the number of words children understand at different ages, and we can see the blue line sits higher on the graph than the red line, which is showing us the number of words children say. And this indicates to us that kids really do understand more words than they're able to say at these ages. And I'll just show you one more thing, and that's that the red line representing the number of words kids say starts going up really fast at about 1.5 years of age. And this is a really cool thing that researchers call the vocabulary explosion. So overall, this graph is showing us that at around 1 year old, a child will understand an average of about 20 words from the OZI SF list, but be able to say very few. And by 2 years old, a child will say on average close to 50 words from the list. And by 2.5 years old, a child will say an average of 83 words from the list, but they'll still be able to understand more than they can say. And I think we've just got another slide here. Yeah, so this is a nice little word cloud that's been put together by Caroline Hendy, and it shows the words children understand with the most popular words appearing the largest. So we can see that mummy and grandma are the biggest words on the cloud, with other commonly understood words such as hug, ouch, uh-oh, also featuring pretty prominently. And I have to say, as a mum myself, it gives me a huge burst of joy to see mummy right at the centre.
Thanks, Holly. I agree. It's great when you hear them say mummy. Caroline Hendy has also been working on the project and helping with some of the data analysis. Hi Caroline, it's great to have you with us today as well. I noticed the checklist also asks a few other questions. I'm wondering if you can tell me a bit more about what else the checklist can tell us.
Hi Krista, yeah, so two other key areas that we've looked at so far are where the kids are combining words and the use of gestures and routines. Both of these things have been shown to be important measures of communicative development. So the question about combining words on the actual questionnaire is, has your child begun to combine words yet, such as more milk or doggy bite? And the possible answers are not yet, sometimes, and often. What we found is that most children are not yet combining words before about the 1.5 year age mark. So in the graph that's on the screen, you can see that at 1.5 years, most kids are in blue, which for our graph means not yet, or not yet combining words. It looks like most kids start combining words sometimes or often shortly after that. And in fact, most research in the past has shown that kids start combining words at about the 2-year mark. By the time we get to around the 2.5 year mark in our study, more than 80% of kids are in orange, which means that they're combining words often.
So what's happening with the gestures and the routines?
So we looked at different gestures, which are things that the child does with their hands and arms, and different routines, which are things like singing and dancing and playing various games. This is actually the first time any Australian researchers have looked at kids' gestures like this, so we're very excited to share this with you all today. So the gestures that kids start using early on turned out to be things like reaching and pointing at interesting things. The ones that they started using later, towards the 2.5 year end of the spectrum, were things like blowing kisses and nodding. With the routines, we found that kids were dancing and playing peekaboo quite early on, and just a bit later they were doing things like singing and playing chasing games.
Thanks, Caroline. It's really interesting to see what the data is showing us about this early language development in our babies and our toddlers. It's important to remember that early games, routines, and gestures are important ingredients in helping our children develop the ability to understand words. Doing checklists like this can really help us to think about and support our children's early communicative development. It also makes me wonder, what do I do if I have any concerns? Kate, as a speech pathologist, can you tell me a little bit more about what I could do if I am having concerns for my child?
Absolutely. The best thing to do is to start talking about it. You can talk with your child and family health nurse, your doctor, your early childhood educators, or a speech pathologist with any concerns that you have about your child's vocabulary. Completing checklists like our OZI SF can help you get a quick and easy snapshot of your child's vocabulary to help you start that conversation. Speech pathologists like me are here to help you develop your child's communication skills. You can call your local community health centre, speak with your GP, or hop on Google and check out the Find a Speech Pathologist tab to look for local services. There are private and public options available. Speech Pathology Australia also has lots of extra information on ways to help your child learn to communicate well. And as we mentioned before, we've started to pull some of those things together on our website too. Remember most of all that talking, playing, singing and reading with your child are 4 great ways to support their vocabulary development. You can also link in with local play groups and education settings to give you lots of extra ideas and support. You can, as I mentioned before, access our new website where we've drawn together lots of great resources and contacts so you can access it all in one place. We've also developed a tool that will let you enter your child's scores on the OZI SF and find out how they're tracking with their communication development and find out more about where to go for support.
So there you have it. The OZI SF is a new tool from Western Sydney University that is helping shed light on how Aussie kids are learning to speak. Today, we have covered how you as a parent can fill out the checklist, what our results are showing so far, and where you can go to get more information if you are having any concerns, including a frequently asked questions section on our webpage. We would like again to thank all of the parents who have helped us with this research so far. If you haven't yet done the checklist, you can visit our website at any time and give it a try. And don't forget to check back so you can follow the updates as more results continue to come in. The links to the website and the checklist will now appear in the chat box down at the bottom of your Zoom. If you follow the links, you can check out our website and our frequently asked questions page by clicking on the first link. If you follow the second link, it will take you directly to the OZI SF, so you can have a look or you can fill it out. We'd like to thank all of the team members that are involved in this project, and we give our thanks to the federal government for funding. I'll now hand over to Caroline Jones as we respond to your Q&As.
Thanks, Krista. Yeah, we have about 10 minutes now for questions. Thank you everyone for the questions that we're seeing coming up in the Q&A and also in the chat. We'll do our best to respond to several now, and we do also have a page of frequently asked questions on our website in case that's useful after the webinar, and you're very welcome to email us and get in touch. Let's start with a question from Emma Campbell, and Cherie and Katrina and others have also asked, is this tool suitable for early educators to use? The answer is yes. We would be thrilled if you were interested in doing this with your families. The checklist is designed for parents. The checklist can be filled out collaboratively in conversation with a parent, and that's a really nice way to start a conversation about children's development. These checklists have been used internationally. The research has shown that parents are usually the most expert on their children's language development when the kids are very, very young. So we recommend doing it collaboratively with a parent. Of course, we also recognise that many kids do spend a lot of their waking hours in early learning centres. So we'd be very interested in exploring with you further about the collaboration between an early childhood educator and a parent working together to decide on how a child is going. And next question we might move to is a good question from Verna David. Verna refers to her child and says that she has a special way of saying banana. That's her way of saying banana. Does that count? And the answer is yes. Baby talk counts. All attempts at communication of that item count, even if it's only a word that's special in the family. So that's the quick answer on that, Verna. I hope that answers that. A third question I might throw to Kate Jones, our speech pathologist on the panel. The question is an anonymous question. Could speech pathologists use the OZI SF as a screening tool?
Yeah, so the OZI SF is designed as a screen. It's not a diagnostic tool, perhaps, that we might use a speech pathologist to determine a level of delay, but it certainly is a fabulous tool for us working with our communities and with our families to make sure that children access support at a correct level. So it's a really useful screener to be doing with families in early education settings or at point of referral and things like that. So it's super appropriate for us to be doing as speech pathologists in a screening sense.
Thanks, Kate. We've seen quite a few questions rolling in around families that speak more than one language at home, and kids who are learning English and another language or two. So just to pick up on some of those questions, our checklist is designed to work for families who are bilingual or multilingual. Australia is a very multicultural place, and that's a great thing. It's excellent for kids to grow up learning more than one language. We recognise this in our checklist by suggesting that the parent or whoever's filling out the checklist should give the child credit for whichever language or languages they know each item in. So if a child is growing up learning, say, English and Vietnamese, and maybe they use the word for dog in Vietnamese only, they should get a tick for that on the checklist and ticks for all the other items that they might know across those two languages. That's because we know that when you look at a bilingual child's overall vocabulary size, it's usually about the same as the overall vocabulary size for a kid who's only learning English for their age. But for a bilingual kid, the vocabulary is spread across those two languages, so it's fairer if you count all of the languages that they're using at home. Another question that I've noticed is this checklist suitable, or is there a checklist for babies under 12 months? This was a question that came up in the chat. What's the age bracket? So the age bracket for the OZI SF is 12 months through 30 months. That's 1 through 2.5 years of age. But outside of that, it's also possible to use this checklist. We've designed this checklist to include not only vocabulary items, recognising that kids might not start talking until soon after their first birthday, but also gestures, early communicative gestures that come in really early, like putting their hands up to be picked up. Those are included on our list, as well as games and routines, like round and round the garden, that kind of thing, singing, dancing. So it is possible to use this checklist with babies under 12 months, and you will find the earliest evidence of communicative behaviours if you do that. It's also possible at the other end of the age spectrum to use this with kids older than 2.5, if, for example, they're kids who have special needs. So here it's a good idea to be in touch with your health professionals, your early educators, supporting your child to develop on their own timeline, but you can use the OZI SF to monitor their progress. Just finally, we've probably got time for 1 or 2 more questions. We've had a question around early. So early ERLI is a checklist for Indigenous families. So we've developed this since 2014 as a team of Aboriginal and non-Indigenous researchers at Western Sydney University. It's also a free checklist and it's available for use through the website. You can read more about it. And we have current research going on in regards to that early checklist with an Aboriginal honours student at Western Sydney University. So please get in touch with us by email if you'd like to be part of that as well. I might move finally to Penelope and some other questions around the evidence base. So we're giving this webinar because we're really excited to present a tool that has an evidence base behind it. It is still under research, but we're reporting here on results from 230 families, mostly in Western Sydney, with kids aged 1 to 2.5. So that gives us a comparison sample that underlies the interactive tool on our website where you go and look up and see how your child is going. The parents who contributed to the study, we'd like to thank everyone who joined us, who might be here in the webinar today. You've really made a difference, and we're hoping that indirectly you're able to help other families. So the calculator, you type in the numbers and you get information back that's tailored to your child's scores for their age based on that comparison sample. So that's a comparison sample of kids aged 10.5 to 31.4 months whose parent has a TAFE or a uni qualification. We know from international research that parents are reliable reporters on their child's earliest communication. In fact, they're the most reliable. We have not yet validated it against another speech and language assessment tool, but we are certainly interested in doing more work with GPs and other health professionals. So again, if you would like to partner with us, we'd be thrilled. Please get in touch. I think we're just about out of time now. Thank you for all of the questions, and we're learning from all of them, so thank you very much. We'll endeavour to enlarge our FAQ page, I think, so that we can respond to all of these questions adequately. In closing, we'd really just like to thank you all for coming along today. We've certainly enjoyed having you all, and we hope that you've enjoyed today's session as well. If you still have questions, please feel free to email us, and thanks again for coming to our webinar.